One bullet. The morning had started like every other morning in the war. Gray skies. Cold wind. The smell of smoke and rust hanging in the air like a curse that wouldn't lift. The front line stretched across abandoned farmland, trenches carved into earth that once grew wheat, now growing only bodies and regret. Sergeant Michael Carson adjusted his helmet and checked his rifle for the third time in 10 minutes. A nervous habit he'd picked up somewhere between his second and third firefight. His squad was dug in behind a crumbling stone wall, waiting for orders that always came too late or too early, never at the right time. He was 28 years old. He'd been a mechanic before the draft. Fixed cars, motorcycles, anything with an engine. Had a small garage on the edge of town with his name painted on the window in peeling blue letters. Carson's Auto Repair. His wife Sarah used to joke that he loved those engines more than her. He'd always laugh and pull her close and tell her that wasn't remotely true. Their daughter Emma was 6. She had Sarah's eyes and his stubborn chin. Last time he'd seen her, she'd made him promise to come home for her birthday in October. He'd promised. That was 9 months ago. The explosion came without warning. Artillery. Close. Too close. The ground didn't just shake, it broke. Split open like rotten fruit. The stone wall disintegrated into dust and shrapnel. Carson felt himself lifted, thrown backward, deaf from the blast, blind from the debris cloud that swallowed everything. He hit the ground hard. His rifle flew from his hands. His helmet cracked against something solid. The world spun, tilted, refused to stay still. When his vision cleared, he was on his feet, stumbling, running, though he didn't remember deciding to run. Instinct. Survival. The animal part of the brain that doesn't ask questions, just moves. Smoke everywhere. Screams everywhere. The sound of engines and gunfire and something else, something deep and terrible like the earth itself was tearing apart. Then he saw it. A bunker. Half buried in the hillside, concrete and rust, probably from the last war or the war before that. The door hung open like a mouth. Dark inside. Dangerous inside. But more dangerous outside. He ran for it. His boots slipped on loose dirt. His lungs burned. Behind him, bullets chewed up the ground, kicking up geysers of mud. He didn't look back. Looking back meant dying. He dove through the door just as another explosion rocked the hillside. The bunker door slammed shut behind him. Metal scraping stone. Then darkness. Complete. Suffocating. He couldn't see his hand in front of his face. His ears rang like church bells that wouldn't stop. He pressed his back against the wall, gasping for air, trying to remember how his lungs worked. Then he heard it. Breathing. Not his own. Someone else was in the bunker. His blood turned to ice water. Slowly, carefully, he reached down to his belt. His rifle was gone, lost in the chaos outside. But his sidearm still there. He pulled it free, hands shaking so badly he almost dropped it. A light flickered on. Emergency lamp. Battery powered. Weak. Barely enough to push back the shadows. And there, on the opposite side of the bunker, was a soldier. Enemy uniform. Torn and filthy. A rifle clutched in trembling hands. Helmet cracked down the middle. Blood running down the left side of his face into his eye, dripping from his jaw. The two men locked eyes. For a moment, neither moved. Neither breathed. Just stared. Carson raised his pistol. The enemy soldier raised his rifle. Time stretched like taffy. Outside, the battle continued. Muffled now, distant, like a storm happening in another world. Inside the bunker, the only sounds were breathing and the faint electric hum of the dying lamp. Carson's mind raced. This was the enemy. The enemy he'd been trained to kill. The enemy who'd killed his friends, his brothers in arms. Rodriguez, who told terrible jokes. Patterson, who collected coins from every place they'd been stationed. Williams, who sang old country songs when he thought no one was listening. Dead. All dead. Because of soldiers like this one. Drop the weapon, Carson said. His voice came out hoarse, barely recognizable as his own. The enemy soldier didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stared with eyes that looked too young, too scared, too human. I said drop it. Carson's finger tightened on the trigger. The soldier's lips moved. Words came out in another language. Desperate. Pleading. Carson didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. The same fear he felt. Neither man lowered their weapon. Seconds became minutes. Arms began to shake from the strain of holding steel steady. Muscles screamed. Hearts hammered against ribs like prisoners trying to break free. Then the enemy soldier coughed, a wet, painful sound, and stumbled backward, his rifle dipping for just a moment. His free hand clutched his side. Blood seeped between his fingers. Dark blood. Too much blood. He was wounded. Badly. Carson saw his chance. Could fire. Should fire. And this before. The bunker shook. Another explosion. Closer than before. Dust rained from the ceiling like snow. The lamp swung wildly on its hook, shadows dancing across walls covered in old graffiti and rust stains. A deep, grinding sound echoed through the space. The door. Carson turned, heart dropping into his stomach. The bunker entrance blocked. Completely. Rubble piled high. Stones and dirt and twisted metal. The explosion had triggered a collapse. They were trapped. Sealed inside. Together. He turned back to the enemy soldier, whose face had gone pale. The man understood too. Both their training, all their instincts screaming kill him, but now, with a new, terrible realization. What happens after? The enemy soldier lowered himself slowly to the ground, back against the wall, still clutching his rifle but no longer aiming it. His breathing came in short, pained gasps. The blood from his side wound pooled on the concrete floor, spreading like spilled paint. Carson kept his pistol raised, but doubt crept in like poison. He checked the magazine. 3 bullets left. Now wait. 2 had fallen out during the blast. He could see them in the dirt near the door, out of reach on the wrong side of the rubble. 1 bullet. Just 1. The enemy soldier saw him check. Saw him realize. For a moment, something like understanding passed between them. Minutes crawled by like wounded animals. Carson's arm grew tired. He lowered the pistol slightly but kept it ready. His mind worked through scenarios, each one worse than the last. Rescue could come. Probably wouldn't. The battle was chaos. No one knew where he was. His squad was likely scattered or dead. The bunker was old, forgotten, barely visible on any map. And air. How much air did they have? The space wasn't large. Maybe 15 feet by 12. Low ceiling. 1 ventilation shaft half collapsed. He could feel it already, the stuffiness, the way each breath felt slightly heavier than the last. Hours maybe. Maybe less if they panicked. The enemy soldier coughed again, harder this time. His body curled around the pain. When the coughing fit passed, he looked up at Carson with eyes that held no fight left in them. Just exhaustion. Please, he said in accented but clear English. Just do it. Carson's finger twitched on the trigger. You speak English? The soldier nodded weakly. Learned in school. Before. Before what? Before all this. Before the war. Before. He trailed off, coughing again. Carson didn't lower the gun, but he found himself asking, "What's your name?" The question surprised them both. The enemy soldier hesitated, as if trying to remember something from a previous life. Alexei, he finally said. Alexei Volkov. Michael Carson. Saying their names out loud felt like breaking a rule neither of them knew existed. Alexei's head lolled back against the wall. You should shoot me, Michael Carson. That wound, I won't survive. Save the bullet. You'll need it. Need it for what? Alexei's eyes met his. When the air runs out. The words hit Carson like a physical blow. He hadn't let himself think it. Not fully. But now it was there, spoken aloud, undeniable. 1 bullet. Not enough for both of them. But enough for one. An escape. From suffocation. From the slow, clawing panic of dying in the dark. From feeling your lungs burn and your vision fade and your fingernails breaking against concrete as you scramble for air that isn't there. Carson's hand began to shake again. Do you have a family? The question came out before he could stop it. Alexei closed his eyes. A small, sad smile crossed his face. A wife. Katerina. And daughter. Anya. She's 6 years old. Carson's heart stopped. 6 years old. Same as Emma. He reached into his pocket with his free hand, pulled out a photograph. Creased and worn from being carried everywhere. Sarah and Emma sitting on the porch steps of their house. Emma was missing her 2 front teeth, grinning anyway, holding up a drawing she'd made. He held it out so Alexei could see. Alexei stared at the photo. Then reached into his own pocket, wincing from the movement, and produced his own photograph. A woman with dark hair and kind eyes. A little girl with pigtails and a flower in her hand. They could have been the same photo. The same family. Just different names. Different languages. Different flags. Time became meaningless. The lamp flickered, threatening to die, then held on. Barely. Carson finally lowered his pistol and sat down against the opposite wall. He kept the weapon in his lap, fingers still near the trigger, but the immediate threat felt distant now. Hollow. Alexei's breathing grew more labored. His face was gray, slick with sweat despite the cold. The pool of blood beneath him had stopped spreading. Not because the wound had clotted, but because there wasn't much blood left to lose. I was a teacher, Alexei said suddenly, his voice barely above a whisper. History. I taught teenagers about the Great Wars. About treaties and alliances. About how humanity learned from its mistakes. He laughed, a weak, broken sound that turned into a cough. I was wrong. We learn nothing. We just repeat. Over and over. Carson listened. What else could he do? What did you do? Alexei asked. Before? Mechanic. Fixed engines. Ah. Alexei smiled. Builder. I was teacher. You were builder. And now? Now we're soldiers. No. Alexei shook his head slowly. Now we are prisoners. Sentenced by old men who will never see this bunker. Who will never know our names. Carson wanted to argue. Wanted to say something about duty, honor, defending home. All the words they drilled into him during basic training. But the words wouldn't come. Because Alexei was right. They weren't enemies by choice. They were enemies by geography. By birth. By the random chance of being born on opposite sides of a line some politician had drawn on a map 100 years ago. Do you know why we're fighting? Alexei asked. This war. Do you know why? Carson opened his mouth. Closed it. Tried to remember what the officers had said. Something about resources. Territory. Old grievances. The speeches had all blurred together. No, he admitted. Not really. Alexei nodded. Neither do I. Isn't that something? We kill each other and we don't even know why. Silence fell again. Heavier this time. Outside, the sounds of battle began to fade. Whether the fighting had moved on or simply ended, Carson couldn't tell. Inside, the air grew thicker. Carson noticed it first in his breathing. Each inhale required slightly more effort. His head felt light, fuzzy around the edges. Carbon dioxide building up. He looked at Alexei, who had noticed too. The fear in the man's eyes mirrored his own. How long? Carson asked. Alexei shrugged. Hours? Maybe less. Hard to say. Carson looked down at his pistol. One bullet. The metal felt heavier than it should. Use it, Alexei said quietly. When I'm gone. Don't wait. The waiting is worse. Carson shook his head. I can't just. Yes, you can. You must. Alexei's voice gained strength despite his failing body. For your daughter. For Emma. She needs her father to come home. And Anya needs hers. Alexei smiled sadly. Anya's father is already gone. Look at me. I'm bleeding out. Even if they rescue us in the next 10 minutes, I won't make it. My body knows it. Yours does too. Carson wanted to deny it. But the truth sat between them like a third presence in the bunker. Alexei was dying. The only question was whether Carson would die with him. The lamp finally died. No warning. No final flicker. Just darkness. Complete and absolute. Carson's breath quickened. The darkness pressed against his eyes like physical weight. He blinked, trying to adjust, but there was nothing to adjust to. No light. No shapes. Nothing. Alexei? His voice sounded small in the black. Still here. The reply came from across the bunker. Weaker than before. Fading. Carson gripped his pistol tighter. His other hand touched the wall, needing something solid, something real. Minutes passed. Or maybe hours. Without light, time dissolved. He counted his breaths to stay sane. 1, 2, 3. Each one slightly harder than the last. His chest felt tight. His head pounded. The air was running out. Michael. Alexei's voice barely audible. Yeah. When you get out, when you go home, tell them. Tell who? Everyone. Tell them what happened here. That we didn't have to be enemies. That we were just men. Just fathers. Tell them that. Carson's throat tightened. I will. Promise. I promise. Silence. Then, thank you. Alexei's breathing changed. Became shallow. Irregular. The sound of a machine running out of fuel, sputtering, failing. Then nothing. Carson sat frozen in the darkness. Alexei? No response. Alexei? Still nothing. He crawled forward, hands searching the floor until they found fabric, skin, blood. He pressed his fingers to Alexei's neck, searching for a pulse. Nothing. Gone. Carson pulled back, sat against the wall, alone now in the complete darkness. One enemy gone. One bullet left. He picked up the pistol. Felt its weight. Thought of Sarah. Emma. The garage with his name on the window. October birthdays and terrible jokes and dreams of peace. He lifted the pistol. Pressed the barrel under his chin. Cold metal against warm skin. His finger found the trigger. One bullet. One choice. End it now, quick and clean, before the suffocation, before the panic, before the animal fear that would make him claw at the walls and scream until his throat bled. Or wait and hope. Hope for rescue that probably wasn't coming. Hope for air that was already gone. His finger tightened. Emma's face appeared in his mind. Her gap-toothed smile. Her laugh. The way she'd hug him so tight when he came home from work, like she was afraid he'd disappear. He'd promised her, "I'll come home for your birthday." But that was before. Before the war. Before the bunker. Before. A sound. Faint. Distant. Metal scraping stone. Carson froze. Held his breath. Listen. There it was again. Hello. A voice. Muffled. Far away. Anyone in there? Carson's heart hammered against his ribs. Here, he shouted, his voice cracking. I'm in here. The scraping grew louder. Orders being shouted. Equipment clanging. The sound of rubble being moved. Light. Just a thin crack at first. Then wider. Hands reached in. Pulled him out. Into daylight so bright it felt like needles in his eyes. Into air so sweet it hurt his lungs. Into life. Days later, Carson sat in a medical tent, wrapped in bandages, staring at his hands. An officer, Captain Morrison, stern-faced, by the book, sat across from him with a clipboard and a pen. Sergeant Carson, Morrison said, I need your report on what happened in the bunker. How many enemy combatants were inside with you? Carson looked up, saw Alexei's face, heard his voice. Tell them what happened here. He opened his mouth. None, sir. Morrison frowned. None? But the medic said there was another body? A civilian, sir. Caught in the crossfire. Already dead when I found him. Morrison studied him for a long moment, then nodded and wrote something on his clipboard. You're being put in for a commendation. Surviving for 8 hours in those conditions. Good work, Sergeant. Carson said nothing. 6 months later, the war ended. Not with glory or triumph, just exhaustion. Both sides too tired, too broken, too empty to continue. Carson went home. Sarah cried when she saw him. Emma ran into his arms and wouldn't let go. He held her and tried to remember how to smile. He reopened the garage, fixed engines again, tried to rebuild the life he'd left behind. But some things don't rebuild. Some things stay broken. At night, he dreamed of darkness, of a bunker, of breathing that wasn't his own. 1 year after the war, he traveled back, to the hillside, to the bunker. It took 3 days to find. The battle had changed the landscape, scarred it beyond recognition. But he found it. The entrance was still partially collapsed. Someone had cleared enough rubble to remove the bodies, then left it. He climbed inside. The lamp was still there, dead on its hook. The walls still bore their graffiti and rust stains. And on the floor where Alexei had died, a dark stain that wouldn't wash away. Carson knelt beside it, reached into his pocket, pulled out 2 photographs. His family. Alexei's family. He placed them side by side on the ground. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm sorry I lived and you didn't. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'm sorry I lied about who you were. The bunker didn't answer. I told them, he continued. I've told everyone who'll listen. About what happened here. About how we didn't have to be enemies. But no one wants to hear it. They want heroes and villains. They want their wars to mean something. His voice broke. But it didn't mean anything, did it? You died for nothing. They all died for nothing. He stood slowly, looked around the bunker one last time. At the walls that had held them prisoner. At the space where he'd almost used his last bullet. At the darkness that had forced 2 enemies to see each other as human. I kept my promise, he said. I'm telling them. I'll keep telling them. Even if they don't want to listen. He climbed out. Back into daylight. Back into a world that had moved on, that wanted to forget, that was already planning the next war. But Carson couldn't forget. Would never forget. Because some wars don't end on the battlefield. They end in silence. In darkness. With 1 bullet left. And a choice that haunts you forever. Years later, Emma, now grown, now a mother herself, would ask her father about the war. He'd tell her about a bunker. About a teacher named Alexei. About humanity's capacity for both cruelty and grace. And about a little girl in a photograph who never got to see her father come home. Why are you telling me this? Emma asked. Carson looked at his daughter, saw her children playing in the yard and said, so you'll remember. So when they come with their flags and their speeches and their promises of glory, you'll remember what war really is. What is it? He thought of darkness. Of blood on concrete. Of a pistol pressed under his chin. War, he said quietly, His two fathers dying in the dark, fighting for men who will never know their names. Emma hugged him. He held her tight. And in that moment, in that embrace, there was no war. No enemies. No bullets. Just love. Just survival. Just the terrible, beautiful weight of being alive.